inventory module allows you to have sales items that maintain inventory and are called inventory items. When an inventory item is purchased but not yet paid for, the information is entered into CenterPoint as a vendor invoice. When the vendor invoice is saved, the quantities on hand and the costs of the inventory item is updated. At this point, the inventory item is available for a customer sale, even though the vendor invoice has not yet been paid. Let's enter a vendor invoice for inventory items. From the top of the screen, select Processes, Purchases, and Vendor Invoice AP. We're going to select our vendor. In this session, we're going to concentrate on using inventory items. For the general steps of going through a vendor invoice, refer to the video of Enter a Vendor Invoice. Selecting our vendor filled in the account payable account in our terms. We could change the date, and we're going to leave the amount empty in this example. At the bottom of the screen, the grid defines what we're purchasing. We can select our inventory item in either the item or the account. So we have some helmets that we're going to purchase, so I'm going to filter for our helmets, and there's a Mohawk Youth helmet. So we can select it at the item and filled in the account. We could have just as well selected our Mohawk Youth helmet in the account field too. The one advantage to using the item is if I wanted to go to the detail of the sales item and check out the purchase information, I can right-click in this field, choose Edit. That will take me to my sales item screen, and I can go to the purchase information and check previous purchases for costs and also different vendors that I've used with this particular item. After selecting the item, it filled in my notation for my additional description in that inventory item, and I can put in the quantity that I want to purchase. In this case, we are tracking our inventory items by inventory location, so I want to turn that column on in my front screen so I don't have to click the detail button all the time. I'm going to right-click on my Add Remove Columns and find my column for inventory location. Check that. And I also want to see available quantity. So I'm going to check that too. I'm going to click the striped up arrow that'll gather it to the top, and then we can position that column where we want it. I'm going to move inventory location up also. Whoops. And now I'll click OK, and it added my columns to the screen. When I change my inventory location, I have two stores, and I'm going to select the Red Wing store. You can see now that it updated my quantity available for this particular item in this inventory location. Now I can type in how much from the invoice, how much the two helmets are for this particular item. I can always go to my details screen too to see other fields I might want to fill in. Another thing you can do on the details screen is I can look up the balances of this inventory item by clicking the button with the three dots on the account item field. That brings up my different locations. In this case, I'm tracking by inventory location. And in my Colorado store, I have 4, and I also have 4 in my Red Wing store. Click OK. If I need to create a new item on my next row, if I don't have a sales inventory item yet for the next item I'm purchasing, I can create a new item. Make sure you're in the item column, right-click, and then choose New. That will bring up my sales item screen where I can fill out the information for this new item that I'm purchasing and fill in the account information, whatever other pieces of data I need to put in this new item. On the next screen, I'm going to purchase a lotted item. So I have some youth bikes that we're keeping in lotted items. So I selected my youth bike 20, and it brought up my lotted serialized item screen. Every time you select an inventory item that is a lotted or serialized item, it will pop up the screen where you will indicate what you're purchasing out of the existing lotted numbers or serialized numbers that are in the screen, or you can add new rows. So I am going to purchase 2 of these black and red 10 speeds. Whoops, I have to hit my tab key. At $140 for the 2 bikes. And then I also need to add a new row because I'm purchasing one that is not already on the list. I'm going to purchase some red ones for girls. So I'm going to do a 6514 as another number and enter 2 and the price of 140 again. And this is going to be red girls 10 speed. All right, and that added my new row here, and if I click OK, that brought in my field of a total quantity of 4 and my total price of 280 for those 4 bikes, but in 2 different lotted numbers. If by chance I needed to make a correction here because I filled in that screen wrong, we can add a column also to get back to that lotted serialized screen. I'm going to right-click on the blue row again, and this time go down and find the column called Lot Serial Number. That brought a column in, and notice that the only one highlighted is the one for my lotted item. On my inventory item, the helmets are just an inventory item, not lotted or serialized. The lotted column is grayed out. So I can click this yellow button. That brings back my screen again where I could fill out or make any new changes I needed to on this screen. Your vendor invoice can be any combinations of different inventory items or lotted serialized items or non-track items, service items, or just plain expenses. So for example, if I had some freight I needed to add on to this invoice, I could just choose in my account, my expense account for freight expense, and then go ahead and put in how much freight that was. Another way to do freight is down at the bottom are our memo lines down here. If you have anything in the memo lines, that will print on your check when you actually pay this invoice. It'll transfer that memo to your check. But the other thing you can do is click the options and show other charge fields. And instead of showing the memo lines, you can show freight and sales tax. So this is another easy way to put in your freight and sales tax if you're tracking that. And this would require that you have the preference filled in under File, Preferences, Vendor Invoices, and Default Accounts. I'm going to click the Database tab, and these fields would need to be filled in. That allows you to do your freight and your sales tax expense where I could put the amount in here instead of making a separate line on the grid at the top. If that is all of the items that I need in my vendor invoice, I'm ready to click Adjust Amount, and this invoice would be saved and would increase my accounts payable balance for Speed Racer supplies and would also increase my inventory items in my expense account.